Open the door. Open the door.
I just rang your doorbell because I have a couple questions for you. What? Are you sure?
Hey, creepy crew! The moment we've all been waiting for is finally here. It's time to announce the winners of our creepy story contest. But first, I want to thank everyone who submitted their spine-chilling tales and all of you who voted. Let's start with our third place winner. Jacqueline, congratulations. Your story, Praying to Get Out, has earned you a $25 Cash App prize. Your tale of terror truly gave us all the chills. Next up, our second place winner. Give it up for Dee. Your story, Night Terrors, The Boy with No Eyes, was haunting and unforgettable. You've won a $50 Cash App prize. Well done, Dee. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, our first place winner. Drum roll, please. Kimberly, congratulations. Your story, Paranormal Encounter in the Big Easy, captivated and terrified us all. You've won the grand prize of $100. Your encounter was both eerie and compelling, making it the standout story of the contest. You all will receive payments in a few minutes. Thank you all for participating and for making this contest a huge success. Stay tuned for more creepy content and keep those stories coming. You might be our next winner.
Here's a story no one asked me to tell, but I'm going to tell it anyway. As an event designer here in New Orleans, I went to a lot of places, a lot of these downtown places known for really strange things happening. And one of those places that was very popular, still is a restaurant called Muriel's. And in Muriel's, you go down this long corridor, which was used as an entryway, and back in the day had like horse and buggies and that kind of thing. But I'm pretty clairvoyant, and every time I go down that corridor, I can just feel it. Some people can't, and they're like, you're crazy, you don't know what you're talking about. But if you're like me, you know that kind of feeling, that eerie feeling. So at the end of this corridor, it's at the bottom of the steps. So Muriel's has this table set up, and you are supposed to, if you have events, which are always upstairs, set it and put like a roll or a piece of bread, 2 glasses of red wine. And so they tell people this. They're like, you should really do this. So I was working an event, and I had my whole team come in, and we're carrying everything up these stairs. It's like 3 flights of stairs. And you go up to these 2 rooms, and then they have this back room that's called the seance room. Now, I don't go in the seance room because I don't want to feel what I know I can feel. So I just like, beware, I'm not going in there. So we set everything up. It's fine. And then we leave. Well, that night, my husband and Mr. Houston, who has worked with us for 30 years, went to go and pick up everything. So they see the table. Table still doesn't have anything on it. They go up the stairs to take everything down. And what they walk into are all these people, some of them laughing, some of them in shock, some of them look like they're white as a ghost, all of this stuff, all discussing the same thing. So what happened was when someone got up to do a speech, the waitstaff had these champagne glasses all lined up on the side on a table and on this mantle above it. And so when the person stood up to give a speech, there goes the wine glasses one at a time. Pop, 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 pop. On their own, everybody's looking to see who's breaking those wine glasses. It wasn't an act. It wasn't planned. It wasn't some kind of like little, woo, New Orleans kind of thing that we planned. It was them. And so if you ever go to Muriel's, and especially if you have an event there, you better believe that table better be set. They need to be invited to your event.
You believe in vampires?
Yes.
Let's talk about vampires, because what the
There's been a TikTok.
Katie and Dana, I'm so happy that you guys are talking about real vampires. I have tea. I'm going to tell you about how I met real vampires and also about a crazy story where I was being fed on. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm a paranormal investigator. I also do a lot of research regarding the paranormal and folklore and cryptids. And about a year ago, I posted a video about my research on real vampires. The video wound up going viral, and real vampires wound up watching my video and reaching out to me. Because of this video about real vampires and me meeting real vampires, I also wound up meeting Ben Alan Kush, the owner of a paranormal production company, New Blood Universe, who I now work with. New Blood Universe has a docuseries coming out about real vampires, so make sure you're following their socials if you're interested. New Blood Universe is also producing a show that me and my best friend Danelle are doing called The Curious Crypt. It's a paranormal investigation show. For the show, in March 2024, Danelle and I packed our bags and headed to New Orleans to do some investigations. While we were there, we wound up going into a vampire bar. Had to get a password to go in there. It was very secretive. Go to New Blood Universe to see the full story on it because we just posted it there.
We see this like candelabra, and this man looked like a vampire.
He looked like a straight up vampire.
We know we're gonna meet with a specific vampire who is considered an elder. I right off the bat did not like him. Like I had a weird feeling about him.
And I just didn't care, to be honest. I met him, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get drinks. So I was inside while you had this whole conversation with him where he fed on people.
Yeah.
Who are right in the street in front of you.
Yes. They would start to like almost look like disoriented.
But basically, I wound up meeting a blue-haired Colin Robinson. I don't know if you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, but Colin Robinson is an energy vampire, and I met him, and he comes in a form of a female who literally sucked the life out of me. In my defense, I was like, this girl has blue hair, she's part of a LARPing group, and I'm a nerd. She's probably gonna be really cool to talk to. So Danelle and I go to talk to her, and let me tell you, out of all of the things that we could talk about, she talks about the public policy of her LARPing group. I don't even know how long she talked for, but I felt like every ounce of my life was drained from me. I was so bored I could have slept for 10 years. Not only have I spoken with real vampires in length to get all of the information I could, but I'm also really good friends with a lot of real vampires. I promise you, they're not all bad. Just like humans in general, humans can be good, humans can be bad, we can be morally gray, we can be somewhere in between, and that's pretty much where anything with will and forethought and all of those things land. They can be good, bad, somewhere in between. If you are into the supernatural, folklore, cryptids, the paranormal, and real vampires, and the fae, gotta mention them because I love them, make sure you're following me. Make sure you're following New Blood Universe because things are about to get weird.
Okay, y'all, so I am back. It has been a minute since I have posted about my spooky stories, but I have been going through a whole lot, and life has just been crazy. But this particular story I have been waiting to post because I needed to find the actual photo so that I could actually have receipts to show you guys what I actually went through. Okay, so this story is about the time when I stayed in New Orleans and my son had an imaginary friend, and she decided that she was gonna ride my back, and my daughter actually caught the picture of her on my back. Okay, so I moved to New Orleans in 2011, and when I moved down there, my son was 3 years old at the time, and he used to always play by himself. Like every day he was in the room just casually playing by himself. At the time I had 2 boys and 2 girls. Okay, so I must add that when we moved to New Orleans, we moved down with my child's brother. We moved in their 2-bedroom apartment. It was him and his fiance because we didn't have plans on staying with them for too long. We just needed a little stable place before we were able to get on our feet because it was such a sudden move. I went down to New Orleans for my birthday. I loved it. I came back to Atlanta within a week. I had all of my stuff packed in my apartment, and I was moving back down to New Orleans because that's where I wanted to be. It was the life. Now, at that time, it didn't dawn on me that my son would always play by himself. I mean, I was a loner as a child also, and I used to play by myself all the time, and my imagination was humongous, so I didn't want to stop him from whatever he had going on with his creation and his own little reality. I didn't want to dim down his light, so if he was playing, talking to his imaginary friend, it never dawned on me it was a spirit, like, stop, don't allow your children to do that. So fast forward 2 months into us being down in New Orleans, I was working at Burger King. I was an assistant manager at the Burger King. And so this particular day, I'm going to bring on the day, and then I'm going to have to rewind the story. So make sure you pay attention. Okay, so on this particular day, I remember it like it was yesterday because the chain of events that happened on that day was just mind-blowing for me. It was life-changing. It was just something unimaginable. It was January 28th, 2012. Normal day, got up 4:30 that morning to get dressed, get ready, go to work by 5 a.m. Everything was cool. I got to my store. I opened my store about 5:30. That's when my employees start coming in. It was 2 girls. I cannot remember their name, but Daniel was the only guy. He was a flamboyant guy or whatever, but Daniel is who I remember because he is the main topic of this story. So they come in, we get everything put together, get all of our breakfast cooked, get everything put together for our shift to run smoothly for that morning. And we got done pretty early, so we just sat down in the lobby to chill until our customers started rolling in or whatever. So all the employees get there. My crew was like, we was cool. We was calm. Everybody got along. We talked about everything versus our job versus our families. Like, we just talked about everything. So we get all of the breakfast and everything squared away, and we just chilling. So everybody is chilling, and next thing you know, on my sister, y'all, God rest her soul right now, we literally hear horns in the sky. Like, the sound was just like everybody's heart dropped to their ass, and we all looking out the window to the sky, just honestly waiting on God to come rushing through. Like, it was literally sounding of a trumpet. Like, January 28th 2012, the sounds of the trumpet, we heard it, and thank God that they were there at that time to witness it, because nobody would have believed me if I was there by myself. So we literally all mind boggled at this point. Like, we are all just shocked. Like, we all rushed to the dining room, and we just at a loss for words because of what we just heard. Like, we had to go and regroup and get ourselves together because we all walking in circles and trying to figure out what's going on, praying, and Lord knows, just trying to gather ourselves at that moment. So we all just ended up in the dining room at the tables, just talking and just mind blown by what had happened. And Daniel was our friend who actually practiced Wicca. So he takes his little tarot cards out, and he's like, oh, I want to do some palm readings on you guys. Now, mind you, I'm 2 months into New Orleans. I've been raised Christian. I don't deal with any witchcraft. I don't get into it. You're not reading no palms. You're not tarot carding me. You're not doing any of that kind of stuff to me. So I watched while he did the 2 girls that was there with me. So Daniel reads the tarot cards for one of the girls that was in there, and it was to the point where this girl was crying because she was saying that everything that he was saying was true, and it was just crazy or whatever. So after he read her, he stopped and he was like, you guys, my mom told me to tell my friends something, and you guys are literally the only friends that I have, so this message gotta be for one of y'all. So Daniel proceeds to say that the message that his mom had given him the night before was to let one of his friends know that it was a little girl that was mad because one of her friends were getting ready to get took away. And he was explaining how this little girl was angry. It was a spirit, and that if one of us, which is me and the other 2 girls in the job, if we didn't go through a cleansing, but he was saying that if we didn't go through a cleansing, that the spirit would attach itself to us, and Lord knows what kind of omen it would bring towards us, because she was angry at the time. And so that's when I'm looking crazy once all over again, because the night before, my oldest daughter was taking a picture of my youngest daughter with my cell phone. I was in the background doing hair for my baby father's niece. I was doing her hair, and my daughter snaps a picture of my youngest daughter which you see me in the background and you see the spirit of the little girl on my back. Now, when my daughter was taking a photo, none of us were aware of it until that night my baby father was going through my phone, and he's like, Carmen, who's on your back? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he shows me the picture, and I'm like, I'm doing hair. We zoom in. So when you zoom in, you see the little girl on my back. You see her 2 ponytails in her head. You see her purple dress. I had on a burgundy shirt at the time, and you see nothing else. No features, no arms, no anything else, but you see the silhouette of the little girl on my back. So now fast forward to January 28th. Daniel is telling me what his mom said, and like I said, I'm looking crazy because at this time, it finally brought up my baby father telling me about the little girl on my back. And also at this time, we had found our place and we were getting ready to move. And so when Daniel spoke of what he spoke of, I got scared all over again. And that's when I started telling him about the picture that my daughter took and that what me and my baby father had caught in the picture the night before. And so I showed him the picture, and he's like, oh my God. He calls his mom and he's like, mom, it's Carmen. We got to do a cleansing for her. He sends her the picture, and he's like, is this what you're talking about? And mom is like, yes. And she immediately went into some type of language and saying that I'm cleansed and I'm washed. Whole more of the story is that the little girl was on my back and she attached herself to me because she was mad that I was getting ready to move to taking her friend away, which was my son that she played with every day. So after the mom did her cleansing prayer and release for me, it was just crazy how the whole day was playing out. I was just crazy, just astounded by all of the craziness that was going on with the spirits, and it was just mind-blowing. And so got off work, told my baby father what had happened with David and the horns and the mother having to pray for me and all of this stuff. So fast forward, now we're in the bed. About 3-something in the morning, the following morning, we get a call from my baby father's auntie, and she's like, get outside right now. Now, all of his family stayed literally around the block from each other. So we had an auntie on this block, grandmother on this block, another aunt on this block, brother on this block. Like, the family was very close. So his aunt is like 3:20 in the morning. She's like, you get outside right now. We jump up and throw some clothes on and go running outside. Tell me why my son is outside walking down the street saying that his friend told him to follow her to come play. My son was 3 years old, outside in the middle of the night with no clothes on. This little boy had on underwear that were turned backwards, and he was walking down the street because his friend told him to come and play. She was trying to lead my baby to destruction. She was mad at me because we was leaving, and that's just what it is. So here's the picture. And also I may add in, the cleansing that Daniel's mom did not work because this little girl did end up following us around for a little while longer. Last time I believe my son had an encounter with her. We had moved back to Atlanta in 2014, and my son, by this time he was 6 or 7, somewhere around in that age, and we were in our house and all the kids were playing outside. My son disappears. He goes wandering through the freaking woods. We going crazy trying to find him. He finally comes out saying that his friend wanted him to come follow her and play. When she took my son in the woods, she ended up giving him a mushroom. But she ended up giving my son a mushroom to eat, and crazily, he ate it. When we found him, he came out. He told us that he was in the woods because his friend wanted them to go play on a hike or whatever the case may have been. He told me that she had gave him a mushroom to eat. Then literally right after that, my son fell so sick. So sick. At the hospital, his nurse was a Jamaican lady, and I told her what had happened, and he told her the exact same story about the girl, Britt, telling him to come in the woods to eat the mushroom, and she prayed a prayer over him, and we haven't dealt with that little girl ever since. Enjoy.
Y'all, I've been getting hella like New Orleans, like scary talk videos on my feed, and I got some stories. Okay, so the last time that I was in New Orleans was like maybe a couple years ago, and I was coming from Long Beach, California. I was in my little travel bug bag or whatever, and I don't know what possessed me to just go to. I wanted to go to New Orleans. New Orleans, if you've never been to New Orleans, like, for me, like, it's one of those places, like, after a while I crave it. Like, I just want to be there. Like, the energy is very unique, and I noticed that some people are really like uncomfortable by New Orleans. Real talk, I feel like it's usually like racism. Like, let's be real. Like if somebody who's non-black is like, I don't know, like New Orleans just like, I'm just like, oh, so you don't like black people? Because one thing I love about New Orleans is the fact that it's so black, and it's such a rich city. Is so cultural, and it's beautiful. I love the ratchet parts too. Shit, that's where the bomb ass food be at. But anyway, like, it's not necessarily just racism. It is a trickster city. It has trickster energy, and that's what I'm about to talk about in these stories. Okay, so I just decided to randomly go down there, and I hit up my friend, and who actually ended up meeting me in Long Beach. I just remember that he was there with me, and he works for the airline. He works for United. So we were just like, okay, we'll meet up in New Orleans, because I had this 2-bedroom, 2-bath, like really nice Airbnb in Marigny, which apparently used to be the hood back in the day. Y'all let me know in the comments, because I don't know. But that's what he was saying. And then his friend was like, no, it's cute now. So I don't know, whatever. So we go out to the gay bar. We're having a great time, having some drinks. Like, he's from New Orleans. So like, he got a couple friends. He be in these streets. So, you know, New Orleans is but so big. So people know him. Like, we're having a good time. So this dude, like a little bit shorter, and I'm tall. A little bit short, I would say like maybe 5'7", brown skin, a little bit on the chubbier side. Dude comes, and he was like, oh, you're so pretty, like da 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 da, like, and it's like, oh, thanks, like whatever, you know, it's a key. So he's like, oh, you got somebody on your mind, girl. And he's like, oh, you like him, ew. And I was like, ew. And I was like, ew, no, but I do. And I was like, not you reading me. And he was just like, he gonna die. When I tell you, something inside of me leapt, like it had to be my motherfucking ancestors, because I already know my ancestors don't play about me. Leapt out of me and was like, don't ever say that. My handyman just walked in, so I had to switch it up a little bit. I just realized I had some ash. Well, it wasn't ash. It's dust from construction. We're doing some construction in my house. Anyway, yeah, that feeling, you know, even when I try to like think about it, I can just describe it as like protection, because the way that I responded so strongly was just like, no, back the fuck up. Like, you know, but it was like, okay, I had some drinks, like the Jameson was flowing, but it wasn't no, like, I was so twisted. Like, I don't get like that when I've been drinking, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like I said, New Orleans has a trickster energy. And when I tell you, like, when I, like, barked like that, he was like, ooh, and, like, just disappeared. I kid you not. Like, the gay bar was not that big. Like, and I even asked my friend, because he was standing, like, not, like, close to us. He was like, I kind of remember that dude, but, like, he's like, I don't know, like I didn't see y'all talking or whatever. And like I even asked like another friend who was like with us, and she was like, yeah, I don't know, I don't remember seeing him. And it's like all of a sudden like nobody saw him. The fuck? I don't like that. No, I don't like that. So the other story is when I was getting ready to leave, I called a Lyft, and it was like 4:00 in the morning. I had a red-eye flight, and when I called this Lyft, bro, like, you know, it wasn't starting to rain. It was already raining a little bit, but pretty lightly. But you know how that go when you're trying to get like a car, and like it's not New York. Like you never know how long it's gonna take. Sometimes you do get a car, it'd be like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, like on some LA shit. So like I'm like, okay, like getting a little nervous, but I finally get a car, and it's some guy. I'll never forget this. His name was like Donovan. Bro, when I tell you again, like that inner feeling was just like, yo, cancel that shit. So I'm bugging because bitches be late, and I'm like, I'm not late, but I see this rain. I don't know how long it's gonna take me to get a car. I'm like not really ready to cancel this Uber, but I'm just like, something ain't right. Like this dude, like, and I know y'all about to be like, don't judge somebody like how they. No, bitch, we judging. Cause like when I looked at him, like, he's giving the originals. It's giving Vampire Diaries. Like, he's super, super pale, dark hair. Just like, yo, looking at the picture of him, I just did not feel right. Right when I was about to just like, I had clicked on his profile to look on his picture, he messaged me, and he was like, have no worries, we'll be there as soon as I possibly can. We'll make sure to get you to your destination in one piece. It was just like, why are you saying all that? Like I get it, because when you get like DoorDash, you get like Lyft or whatever, like people will message you and just be like, you know, like little friendly whatever. Like I said, my gut alarm bells were ringing. So what I did was I ran my Uber to start looking for a car, and the minute that car got, you know, like I linked up with that car, and I just canceled the other one. But like, trust your gut. Like in New Orleans, trust your gut. If some shit does not feel right, don't ask no questions. Get the fuck out of there. Also, the first time that I ever went to New Orleans, which was not the same trip, first time I ever went to New Orleans, this woman told me, she was like, don't move around this city as like a single woman if you can help it. Try to always have somebody with you. She was like, girls like you disappear a lot here. And I was like, what do you mean, like black girls? She's like, you just have you have an aura, you have like, there's something attractive. And when she was saying attractive, I don't think she meant like physically. I think she was talking about like spiritually. Bitch. I don't like that. I don't like that. And this is the first time I ever went to New Orleans. This was one of the first things she ever said to me. Be careful out there.
I need to tell you guys about the most insane evidence that I have ever seen of a ghost existing. Photos will be included. Backstory. I was at a company get-together with my CEOs, my coworkers, and one of the owners of the company. They've all looked at us and was like, hey, do you guys want to see a ghost picture? Immediately, yes. He begins to tell us that he was in New Orleans at a restaurant called Antoine's. New Orleans, first of all, super haunted city. If you know, you know. And Antoine's is one of the oldest restaurants in the city, one of the oldest restaurants, I believe, in America. It has a lot of history. It used to be a jail. It is a really well-established place, has been around forever. So he's dining at this restaurant, and he's offered a tour of the wine cellar. The wine cellar is huge, has thousands of bottles of wine, probably worth millions of dollars. So he's taking a tour of the wine cellar, he's taking pictures. There's this guy in the wine cellar on a laptop who is apparently at auction buying more rare wine for the collection. My CEO takes pictures of this guy on his laptop, doesn't think anything of it, he doesn't see anything, leaves the restaurant, calls it a day. The next morning, he's looking through the photos and notices something in one of the pictures that he took in the wine cellar. I'm going to upload the first picture that he took. There's nothing that immediately jumped out in this picture, but I want to give a baseline. So this is the first picture that he showed me from the wine cellar. You can see this guy who is on his laptop at auction doing whatever. And here is the next picture that he took. So we all see that. That is a full body apparition. It looks like a woman in this like black Victorian dress. And when I was showed this, I genuinely had full body chills. That is insane. So he showed that to me. And keep in mind, he is showing me pictures from his camera roll. Like in sequence, time stamped. Those two pictures were like a minute apart. If that, like probably seconds apart. I see all the other pictures from his trip. This is not edited. He's also not the kind of person who would do anything like that. Like he hasn't posted this anywhere. It's just a story that he was telling us. I've never seen anything like this, and I need to not be alone in seeing this because holy shit.
Okay, so right now I'm on New Orleans TikTok where they're talking about all the like haunted and like vampire stuff that's like happening to them. And I don't have like a lot of like stories like this, but I do have one of when I was an EMT, and me and my 50-year-old Christian woman partner, who she does not believe in this stuff at all. We were taking this patient that was on a 5150 that was being extended. And so we took her to like a longer stay home, which I've never seen like a home like this in LA before. But it was basically like this wood house in Atwater Village. And the moment you pull up, it just looks like this wooden Victorian situation, like something you would see in a movie. Like if you've ever seen that movie Monster House as a kid, like that's what it looked like. And the vibes were just like not right as soon as you got out. But I was like, you know, whatever. We get out and this poor woman, she was just not doing well. She was, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you what was wrong with her. Anyways, we get out and she was like, please don't leave me here. Like I can see things, and like she's like sobbing to me. She's like, please don't leave me here. But like, I have to, you know, like as much as I don't want to leave you here because it is fucking haunted, you can tell. What am I supposed to do? I'd be kidnapping you. Anyways, we get inside. We can barely get her freaking gurney in there. And we're taking her up to the room. The whole time she's just sobbing, this poor girl. And my partner just kind of attributed that to that obviously she didn't want to be in another mental health institution. But so we took her there. They did her vitals. They took her to the room and whatever. We were all done. We get in this elevator. We get in the elevator. And I'm like nervous laughing just thinking about it. We like condense our little gurney and we close the elevator and it says 3, 2, 1, and those are the only buttons. So we click 1 and we stop at 1, the doors don't open, and then it just keeps going down, and I'm like, what the fuck? And the doors open, pitch black. It's pitch black. This is obviously the basement, right? It's pitch black, and you can't really hear anything except like this growling, and not like that, but like growling of like a machine or something. And it's just like really eerie, and the vibes, the energy was just sucked out. Like it's like negative energy. I'm pushing the button and she's looking at me like, Hannah, please push the button. And I was like, I'm trying, like, and I'm pushing 1, I'm pushing 2, I'm pushing everything just so we could go up. And I'm not even shitting you when I say this. I say this with my whole heart. This is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. We heard footsteps. slow footsteps, like a heeled man's shoe walking from the back of the room to the front of the room, but it's pitch black. You can't see anything. Slow footsteps. And she looks at me, and I was like, and we're both pushing buttons. We're pushing the emergency button. We're trying to manually close it because something was wrong. They are about to like come in the elevator light. The footsteps are about to come in the elevator light. And finally it closes. We go back up to 1. And she is like pooping her pants. I am like shaken to the core. And we look at the security guard and I'm like, there is something wrong with your elevator. It took us to the basement. He said, we don't have a basement here, ma'am. We get back in the ambulance. We just had to sit there. We couldn't even clean the gurney for a minute. Like, we had to sit there. And she said, what the fuck? This poor woman, she doesn't cuss. She's a good Christian woman. And we just never talked about it. Even talking about it is giving me like goosebumps because
I'm usually not one to believe in ghosts or anything along the lines of the supernatural. I'm one of the biggest skeptics. I will logically disprove anything before I consider it paranormal. However, I went to New Orleans and I was able to capture something that even I can't explain. This happened outside the LaLaurie Mansion. My girlfriend and I decided to go on one of the ghost tours. The tour guide told us to take a lot of pictures, so we did just that. As you can see here, we were able to capture a lot of orbs. Once our tour was over, we got back to our Airbnb to review the photos. That's when we came across this one. Just a homeless guy sleeping in the street, right? Nothing out of the ordinary. That is until you play it. You'll see what appears to be a man in a top hat walking down the street with his woman. They appear as if they're in Victorian era fashion. Mind you, there was no one else around with the exception of the homeless man sleeping. We were in disbelief of what we captured. So we decided to go back at 2 a.m. That's when things really got weird. If you don't believe in ghosts or anything along the lines of the supernatural, go to New Orleans, walk around the French Quarter around 2 a.m. I can promise you'll be a believer afterwards. We recently were in New Orleans for Halloween weekend. We walked around the LaLaurie Mansion taking pictures and captured this. It appears to be a man and woman walking around with each other in Victorian era fashion. Now mind you, we were the only ones out there, with the exception of this homeless guy. Now we were in disbelief, so we ended up going back out there to capture more pictures. Now before I show you the second picture, I want to tell you the backstory of the woman who owned this mansion. That way the photo that I will show you will make a lot more sense. Madame Marie Dauphine LaLaurie was known as the savage mistress of New Orleans. She was a wealthy narcissist who owned and tortured slaves. Her husband was a doctor. They both would perform medical experiments on her slaves in her attic. Investigators would find slaves beaten and bruised, some with holes in their skull and eyes gouged out. Some had their mouths sewn shut as it was filled with excrements. One woman was even wrapped in human intestine. There was even a report of a woman whose bones had been broken and reset so she could resemble a crab. No one would have known any of this was going on if it weren't for the slave who was chained to the stove that caused the fire. The slave said that she would rather die than be taken to Madame LaLaurie's attic. Madame LaLaurie had no regard to human life when it came to her slaves. There was an incident of one of the younger slaves combing LaLaurie's hair. When she combed too hard, LaLaurie got mad and chased her to the balcony where the girl fell over and died. Our second incident occurred under LaLaurie's balcony. It was around 2 a.m. and my lady stopped because she felt a chill go up her spine. She felt like something was pulling her hair, which you could see in her body language. At first, her hair was above her head. I was able to capture it once her hair was closer towards her shoulders. Could this have been the same spirit that used to do Madame LaLaurie's hair? Or was this just the wind, and this is all one big ghost story?
Have you experienced a ghost in any capacity?
You know what? I've never seen a ghost. I'm really afraid. I'd be afraid to see a ghost, but yet I would kind of like to see a ghost. I was working in New Orleans once, living in kind of an older house, and New Orleans, one of the most haunted cities in America.
That's what they say, yeah.
Someone on set was telling a ghost story, how they were living in also the house that they were renting out, and they were trying to fall asleep, and all of a sudden they heard a voice, clear as day, that just said, "I'm sorry." And it freaked them out, and they were like, "Who is that? What?" And I was like, Chris, why did you tell me that story? I have to go home alone tonight. I was so freaked out walking into the house, and I got into the front door and I said to no one, "Not now." And what I meant was, for any potential ghosts, if you're about to haunt me, not now. I can't handle it. As if the ghosts were like, "Ooh, let's get him. Not now." Oh, come on.
No one asked me to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. In New Orleans, during the 1960s, 1970s time, and even in the 80s, 75% of the New Orleans area were Catholic. So what did our parents do? They sent us to Catholic school. So when I was in the 3rd grade, I started at a Catholic school. It was really a blue-collar worker, a lot of families owned businesses, that kind of thing. So we had a lot of kids in there. Like, I can remember 35, 40 kids in a class. And they had nuns who ran it. Must have had like 5 or 6 of them. Most of them were super nice. But there was one everyone always warned about. They said, wow, when you get her in the 4th grade, you're going to see she is mean. So along comes 4th grade, and if you were unlucky enough, like I was, to have Sister Borgia right after lunch and recess, you were going to learn that she was mean for no reason at all. So we had about 10 minutes to eat, those of us who had her class next. And she would walk through the schoolyard, and we would see her. She was this huge, like 6 foot tall presence, and she had this long, drapey gown, you know, as nuns would wear back then, and she wore her habit. And so she's walking, and she wouldn't look either way, but we knew that we better line up right behind her. She would stop in front of the cafeteria. So all of us, 35, 40 of us, girls in one line, boys in the other, we had to follow her upstairs, this flight of stairs, to her classroom, which was on the 2nd floor, right to the right. And she would stand, we would all go in the hallway. This is every day, for every day of the year. She would stand in the hallway, and she'd look at us. She looked to the girls, she looked to the boys. We couldn't make a sound. We all had to stand there with our hands for no reason at all, just punishing us. No reason. And everybody failed her class. I would have failed it anyway because I had trouble in school. But we would go into her classroom. She would talk as quick as she could, and we were little bitty kids, and we were supposed to be taking notes, and everybody got F's. It was torture in this woman's room for no reason. I guess she just hated children. So I leave that school in the 7th grade, and I really kind of just forget about her. Years later, I heard, you know, she died. I think it was in high school when she died. And so I thought, well, you know, that's that. The torture is over, because she continued to do it and was continued to allow to be doing that to kids over the years. And then I went to school, and it took me a long time to get a teaching degree, but I did get a teaching degree, even though most of my career has been doing weddings and events. And they had, at this same school, this little opening, and I needed a little job, and it was a substitute job to take over the 3rd grade classroom just for a couple of months. So I'm like, oh great, that works out perfectly. That's exactly what I needed before wedding season started, and so I went and took this position. The secretary downstairs, before I even went up to my classroom, says, hey Jill, you know, you were in my son's class. Remember that nun that used to work here? Yeah, I remember. She tortured everybody. She says, well, don't be surprised if you see her, because she's still here. Okay. That's all I needed to hear. You know, I'm on the 2nd floor, right down the way from her classroom, which, by the way, remains locked. They don't even use it anymore after she died. And she said, the secretary said, never like stay after school. Don't stay after school, because you might hear some stuff. Okay. Well, we have a faculty meeting, so I was after school, and all the teachers had left there going down the hallway, and they were all downstairs, and I was by myself up there. I think it was around 4:30. And I locked my classroom, and right out the corner of my eye, I could see that big presence right there. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Right there standing right by that stairwell that she used to stand. And she's standing like this, just looking ahead. And I race, go downstairs. I was so happy that I was almost finished with that whole substitute thing. I couldn't wait to leave. But then I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, you know, that I probably just, you know, there was just some mops or something back there. I didn't just see that little glimmer. But in the next part of this video, I'm going to tell you what happened when my daughter heard the same story.
What you doing? 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 What you doing?